Hey there everyone, and welcome back to the Disconnected. It's been a while. I had not been recording videos regularly. I had banked a whole bunch and put most of those out by this point, so I've got one or two left. But this is one that I could not let go. So tonight we're going to go over 10 myths surrounding collecting boutique physical media. And it's something that has been on my mind a lot lately, that I'm seeing everybody spreading misinformation, and just 10 things that really you gotta shake. You gotta get past them. So let's try to break those myths. So the first one that we're gonna break tonight, number one, is film grain. There are a lot of people that are so-called grain haters, and I don't get that. Film grain is not a bad thing. If you watch a really good 4K of a movie like Arrow's Django release, the grain should be there. When a movie is filmed on film and not filmed digitally, there is film grain that should be a part of the picture, and it brings more of a, let's say, a structure to the film, and it's part of what makes the actual components of the film reel that you're seeing there. There's nothing wrong with seeing film grain. Now, if you're somebody that really only enjoys something that is super crisp and has no grain present, seeing something that's shot digitally is where you should see zero grain. Obviously, that's going to be more modern films and things that have been shot and edited in 4K from the last, say, 15 years, 20 years. Before that, it was a lot more prevalent to be shooting on film. Nowadays, it's very expensive to shoot on film, so many modern directors are choosing to shoot digitally because it's much cheaper, and that's pretty much the only reason. If there was less things in their way, maybe they would still choose to shoot on film, but if it's cheaper, they're going to be going for that 9 times out of 10, especially when they don't have a huge budget behind it. Okay, myth number two. I've been seeing so many people in the comment section on announcements talking about a movie that has been announced to be coming out in 4K, say something along the lines of, "Grr, this movie doesn't deserve 4K," or "This movie doesn't deserve a boutique release," or something like that. That makes zero sense. Every single movie that's out there deserves the best quality release that we can possibly have. Now, when people hear 4K that are not super well versed in the technical side of things, they don't understand the actual components that can make that movie better due to being on a 4K UHD disc. For example, 4K UHD brings two major components. The first is clarity. You can get a movie that was perhaps as high as 1080p, now as high as 2160p. It is a much more clear, higher resolution result. The other thing that is possible with 4K UHD discs is having HDR applied. Now, if you don't know what HDR is, it literally stands for high dynamic range. High dynamic range and HDR is what allows for a wider color spectrum to be used. So technically, even something that is shot on video could potentially benefit from a 4K release. Now, the quality and the clarity on that one hand could not be any better than it is shot on video. You're not going to get a 2160p actual clarity resolution for that film. However, you could have an HDR color grading done on it that more properly fits what the director sought out for that color pattern to look like. Now, there are the nightmare situations, like Memories of Murder from the Criterion Collection, that is essentially green all over and too dim, that the director supposedly originally wanted it to look like. But that's not even a 4K disc. That's just a potentially bad color grading. And any movie can be color graded well, or it can be color graded poorly. That's not up to us. However, simply saying any movie does not deserve 4K, or why did this one get a 4K, you gotta stop. Any movie can deserve 4K. Any single movie in all of history can be put out on 4K. Even something Trauma, Full Moon, Bottom of the Barrel, whatever title, shot on video that you can think of, it deserves to look the best it possibly could be. So not only are fans getting that perfect high quality release that they could get, but also for film preservation. These actual high quality scans and color grading, it's the best possible way that we can preserve these films for the future. Myth number 3 that we're going to break right now. There are lots of times that I see under announcements, especially for companies like Imprint Films, 88 Films, Arrow Video from the UK, even from companies like Scream Factory. I get comments from people that are in the UK and elsewhere in Europe that are asking, does Scream Factory only put out Region A titles? People in the US, does 88 Films release anything that's not Region B locked? Do they release anything that is region free? People under Imprint Films, are these region free? Are they region B? What's going on? So the big problem with the question here is a label cannot ever choose to put all of their titles released region free or region locked or anything like that. The people that control that are those that hold the rights to the title. So a company like 88 Films, yes, they're in the UK. So the assumption is that their releases are going to be region B locked. However, a rights holder could say you are allowed to release this region free. Consumers are currently assuming that a company gets to choose where they release their titles. For example, Indicator from the UK. Most of their titles for the first, 100 plus spines or whatever, they were all region free. So people assumed Indicator will only put out region free titles. That's great. This is amazing what they're doing. Then they started releasing Sony titles. Sony required through the license that they signed that their titles had to be region B locked. And now their titles have been region B locked. Indicator does not get to choose to put out all of their titles region free. The rights holders are the ones that dictate that. For myth number 4, I'm sort of a hypocrite, and the myth that we're going to talk about on this one is that it is better to keep your releases sealed until you watch them. Most people that say this are those that are more likely to sell their releases without ever watching them. And the truth of the matter is, it is better to open your releases as soon as you get them. Reason being, sometimes there are errors, sometimes there are problems. There's a couple titles recently where people have been getting empty cases. So it's literally better for you to get a title in, open it all up, and see if everything is fine. That way, when you get it, you can complain, rather than 2.5 years down the road, you finally got to watch something and realize, God, this thing is mangled on the inside. It's completely shattered, or I'm missing disc 3 out of a 6-disc set, and I never knew that because I never opened it up. Open your items. It's not worth it to save on, a few bucks for having something sealed or not, comparatively on eBay, 4 years down the line. If you're a genuine collector that is collecting because you love to collect and you're not planning to resell everything like some crappy reseller or somebody that's scalping or something like that, open your releases. And to prove that I'm serious about that, this is The Gambler from Imprint. I have the edge opened here. I should have opened this on day 1. Many of my titles have remained sealed. I've just been so busy, it's very difficult to do when I'm not able to get to them as quickly. But open your releases. This is The Gambler. I can see that I have the disc. It's in here. It is in good condition. Everything looks good to go. Support companies like Imprint. They do great work. And open your releases, for God's sake. Next one, number 5, might be a little controversial. That is the myth that I've been seeing everybody complain about: boutique releases being overpriced. Now, I may just be a little on the older side. I don't really think I am yet, but I remember the days when you would see VHS releases advertised for $100. Laser discs used to be more than $100. You used to, be able to send away for bootleg VHS tapes through the mail that were $60 for one crappy disc, and then you just hope that you got it 4 months later. We're living in literally the golden age of boutique home media right now. And I'm sorry, but something that's $40 that comes with art cards and a double-sided poster, and it's in 4K, and it's in a sturdy box that you'll be able to hold on to, and it will last for decades if you handle it right. That's not that expensive. I'm sorry, but all of these movies coming out are worth so much when they're given so much love. I'm not like shilling for all of these labels. Yeah, some of them are charging a couple more than the rest, and they're getting away with it. And that's honestly not that big of a deal. For something that is coming out that we're paying $35 for, back when it was originally released, it might have been $100 on VHS in a crappy quality, in a terrible cardboard sleeve, and we're getting way better quality than that. So yeah, pay attention to prices and budget accordingly so that you don't put yourself in crazy debt or anything like that. But also, be thankful. We're definitely in the golden age of boutique home media collecting right this moment. Number 6, this one is also potentially controversial, especially over the last year and a half or so, and that is that replacement discs are a problem, or replacement discs are a bad thing in general. So yes, it appears that the way that these companies are getting titles out, where they're putting out 4 or 5 a month for some of these companies, they are missing some things. They are literally releasing. Shout Factory just put out one recently where they advertised a special feature and it just simply wasn't on the disc. That's something that should have been caught. Granted, there are worse things that have happened, and we'll get to that in just a second, but replacement discs are the physical manifestation of a company recognizing a mistake, owning up to it, and fixing it for you without you doing hardly anything. For example, Shout Factory is the company right now that everybody is so quick to joke about replacement discs, and it's just really not that big of a problem. When Shout Factory has put out 3 or 4 replacement discs over the last couple of years, and in the history of all of Scream Factory, they've done, gosh, like 10 or 12 replacement discs. They've put out hundreds of titles, like literally more than 500 releases. That's not that bad. It's literally less than 5% of their releases have had a problem. That's pretty dang good in the grand scheme of things, and a lot of the issues that we're seeing are things that are very easy to miss. Now, there are other issues that we could bring up, like I alluded to earlier, and one of the biggest ones is Kino Lorber recently had their release for Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia that got announced as having the new scan and came out, and consumers noticed this is not a new scan. When they complained about it, Kino Lorber first said, nope, there's no problem, the issue is you, you're seeing something that's not an issue, we're not going to fix it. Enough people complained, eventually they had to fix it. So there's now a replacement disc program for that release. If people had not complained and rang the bell, there never would have been a good release for that by Kino Lorber in the US, because it would have been literally false advertising. So now we have a replacement disc for that, and that's a good thing. Consumers get what was advertised to them, and everybody's happy, except, it probably cost Kino Lorber a few $1,000s. You should have done the right one the first time. And granted, that might not have been Kino's fault. It could have been what was given to them by the rights holder. They don't control that. They don't necessarily know what is being given to them. Their QC department should have been doing more to control that and actually look into what they're being given, compare to the past releases, and do everything they can to make it right before they release it. But it didn't cost consumers anything. You just show that you had bought the disc before and you get the replacement. No big deal. Replacement discs are a good thing. It's companies being honest and transparent. Allow them to be without complaining about it. The next one is number 7. This myth is that boutique labels will run out of titles to release. This is just bonkers. Absolutely not. So if you look up a random year, like 1978, that's the year Halloween, the original movie, came out. It was released in 1978. If you look up how many movies were released in 1978, you probably think there's, 500, maybe a couple hundred more than that. It was a time when filmmaking had not really taken off. They didn't have easy access to cameras and all that other stuff. No, there are more than 3,000 movies that came out in 1978 alone worldwide. More than 3,000 movies in 1978. There are so many thousands of movies that can still get the treatment from any of these labels that there's nothing to complain about. No reason to even speculate. Scream Factory is running out of titles for release. Arrow Video, they seem to be faltering. They're going to run out of titles to be able to release soon. It's not the case. There's always going to be something there for these labels to release. There's nothing to worry about on that front. All right, number 8. This one is going to be controversial if you're one of those resellers or scumbag scalpers that we talked about in one of these. And that is that labels printing titles that have been released by other labels previously is a bad thing. That's the myth. The truth is that it's not a bad thing at all. Now, don't come at me yet, and listen. One of the most recent examples of this that people started jumping all over is that Vinegar Syndrome released Action USA. This came out on their VSA line. It was very limited. I'll put the number here that it was limited to. This sold out very quickly because it proved to be a pretty fun, good movie. And people flocked to get it, but it being on their VSA line, it was strictly limited. And after it sold out, they could not sell anymore. They had only licensed that many copies. They could not print anymore and have it as part of their regular Vinegar Syndrome catalog. Now, just a few months after it went out of print, MVD Rewind put out Action USA. This is spine number 27 on their line. It got this really fancy Eric's Video Club slipcover on it. Still the exact same movie. This has all of the special features that was on the Vinegar Syndrome disc, and actually has an exclusive special feature that's on here that was not on the Vinegar Syndrome disc. This came out, and of course, what everybody complained about is the Vinegar Syndrome release previously to this being announced was literally going for $100 on eBay. So people that were keen to resell it could make a ton of money because they bought it for $22 and they're selling it for $100. This one came out and suddenly that one is no longer as expensive. And this came out and it was cheaper than 20 bucks. So of course people are going to buy this and not want to buy the other one as much. But it's a good thing. Why is it a good thing? Because there are so many new collectors that could not buy that old one. And the whole point of this is to watch the damn movie. Get the movie out to as many people as we can to enjoy the films. That's what these are about. We're collecting. We're collecting physical media for a reason. It's not the whole point to get these limited edition releases just to brag or boast about. I mean, buy the movie, support the movie, and actually go to the length of watching the movie. I know it's a novel concept for some, but it's very important. That's why we have these. These are art pieces, and not just in physical packaging. These are art pieces in a visual medium, or if it's a vinyl release that was limited and is gone and it gets reprinted later. It's art pieces in an audible medium. You're there to listen to them. It shouldn't be something that we complain about every time that there's a reprint. And when these get announced, people are commenting in all caps hate, spewing forth towards a company. It is ridiculous. Time and energy is being put into these no matter what. Respect the companies that are doing it. Number 9 is a funny one for me because I kind of try to preach the good word on this one everywhere I go. And the myth on this one is that Zavvi in the UK bought Arrow Video. Zavvi did not buy Arrow Video. There is a company called the Hut Group that bought an ownership portion of Zavvi. They also bought an ownership portion of Arrow Video. Everybody that worked at Arrow before still works there. They didn't lose any employees or anything like that. An investing company bought an ownership share of Arrow Video. That's it. They saw an opportunity to step in and make some money. It's not something that Zavvi exclusives are going to be happening every month because Zavvi bought Arrow. Zavvi exclusives have been happening for years already. It's not something that we're seeing now, but you see people answering matter-of-factly like they're saying, Zavvi bought Arrow, that's why this is happening now. That is not the case. It is time for you to actually pay attention to what is happening. If you're going to share that information, make sure you're telling the truth. It is ridiculous how many people believe that Zavvi now owns Arrow outright. Simply not the case. And the last one is an obvious one. I'm sure you guys have heard this quite often. Number 10 on the myths is that physical media is dying. It's true. Purchases on physical media are down overall. I mean, a limited edition release of The Wizard of Oz 15 years ago was 100,000 units. And now a big print run for something like a Vinegar Syndrome Ultimate release is like 12,000 copies or 10,000 copies. That's huge. And that is a lot more than some of these others. You know, we're seeing on smaller labels minimum print runs of like 500 or 800, or the most common number is 1,000. This is coming out with only 1,000 copies. That's insanity that we're only getting 1,000 copies of the limited release, but then we might get a standard edition later. However, physical media is not going anywhere. We're getting beautiful packaging for some of the releases that we never thought we'd ever see. I mean, when Vinegar Syndrome can put out a title like Six String Samurai in this big, beautiful VSU packaging, hard box with magnetics and a ribbon and a book and a slipcover inside a box, it's There's so much being poured into these, and a lot of it is because people are giving them money, so they're willing to do more. However, that's how we know physical media is not dying. People are collecting, people are investing. There's been some articles recently, I don't know if you've seen any of them, but there's been articles recently about streaming fatigue. People are tired of like browsing through the Netflix homepage to see what to watch, or they only have Hulu, but they feel like they've watched everything and it's not worth it, so they just give it up. They don't want to do it. It's happening with music too. People are tired of playlists. They're going back to albums. And vinyl sales are doing better than they've done in decades. Literally. CDs are being pushed out and vinyl sales are crushing them. It is crazy. Physical media is not dying. It is here for years to come still, guaranteed. However, there is the caveat that we are part of a minority, for sure. Most of the world is all involved in streaming. That's all everybody wants to do. Never touch a disc. But the big problem is that physical media is so necessary in so many situations. You know, when things get censored, when we are losing content, when you love Alfred Hitchcock, but only 5 of his movies are streaming at any one time. You can own everything at home physically. And I've done a whole video on that, and so I'll link it below. But that all being said, physical media is not dying, and you should keep that in mind as you continue to support these smaller companies, these labels, these rights holders that are able to license these titles out that we're all still buying. And not just movie, there's music, there is actual art. There are so many different ways that we can physically support physical media, and I strongly suggest you continue to do so. All right, everybody, that is that. Sort of an angry little rant video, but there's been so much misinformation lately. I just wanted to sort of get off my chest. Hope you enjoyed that. More to come very soon. In talks to do a lot of really cool things. I hope you're paying attention on Thursday nights when we do our streaming show live. It's been a lot of fun. We're going to be doing a big October watch-along. We're choosing titles this Thursday, so if you have not been paying attention, come hang out. We're going to do Thursday night at about 8:30 p.m. Central, and we'll be choosing what we're putting on our calendar for the month of October. That way everybody can get those discs bought if you don't have them. You can get stuff researched, figure out where you're going to be streaming titles if that's what you're going to do. And then every week we're going to discuss the ones we watch. So come hang out. It'll be a good time. Other than that, it's been a while, so I'm glad to be back recording these a little more real time. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. But other than that, you know how we do this. From one collector to all of you. Have a good night. Hi, Dan. Hi.